Several years ago, in the, I think it was fall 2010 semester, a student of mine named Betsy taught me a wonderful lesson. Aside from my creative writing classes, I also teach a first-year seminar called The Voice of the Rebel in America. In this class, we discuss and write about iconic rebel voices in American history, beginning with Thomas Paine, who ignited the American Revolution with his 60-page pamphlet called Common Sense. We go up through the Civil War, Frederick Douglass, and into the 1960s and 70s and all the turmoil there with civil rights, anti-war movements, and up into recent times with the Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street, and things like that. In the fall semester of 2010 in this class, I was having trouble igniting any kind of interest in activism. Things seemed quite quiet, and I was getting very frustrated because I've had a long life, and I remember all the turmoil and excitement around activism myself, and I was kind of projecting my expectations onto the class, and finally I just gave up and I said, "What are you guys afraid of?" And Betsy spoke up right away and said, "I don't know about anybody else. I know what I'm afraid of. Death. What the fuck is that?" And her response was electric. It just, it clarified everything. It was like a lightning strike in the middle of the room. Everything opened up. She was completely right. You know, before we talk about doing things and about activism and everything else, let's get real. You know, what is this about death? What are we talking about? And so she taught me a lot with that. And I guess death is the biggest intimation we have of the space we work in. And we don't want to be going around moping and saying, "Oh God, I'm going to die, I don't know what to do about it, and I might as well go off and do this or that or the other thing." But space informs our lives in that sense. And it's life that we're after. And in life, we do things. The trouble is that doing things often has consequences. And as we've all learned the hard way sometimes, this presents us with a choice. We can either act unconsciously and project our fear of our own insignificance or our fear of death or our fear of not being heard onto our projects and all of our doing, and as a result, do not great work, but gross work. We all have examples in our mind of what gross work might be. It could be trivial work, it could be really gross work, like the idea of the Third Reich or something like that. And just things can get out of hand. Either acting, that's usually from an unconscious impulse, not really understanding our insignificance and our relationship to the planet we're on or the world we live in or what life itself is. It ends. Our work ends. So we have that choice of acting unconsciously or consciously, and if we act with it on the table, as Betsy taught us to do, we stand a chance of acting benevolently. And assuming that we do want to act benevolently, the question then becomes, how do we do things from a deeper necessity than our fear of insignificance, our fear of death? And to answer that question, I'm going to draw on the wisdom of a well-known Native American medicine man from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s named Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder was made famous in part by Bob Dylan, but also because he, as a Cherokee medicine man who married a Chippewa woman, he got around a lot and became a spokesperson for many other tribes and was kind of a spokesperson for Native American thought, medicine, and ways of looking at things. And on May 6, 1972, he gave a talk in front of about 3,000 people in an auditorium in San Francisco. And spoke about the idea of his vision and hope for all of humanity forming a kind of hoop in the shape of the earth itself, joining together all races, creeds, genders, everything that we speak about now, and everybody getting connected and joining and admitting that we're all human, we're all insignificant in the larger sense, and that we share life on the planet. This was his vision, and in a sense, it's come true. This TED Talk is an example. Things have become connected technologically, which is encouraging, certainly. In 1972, I wasn't there to hear him give this talk. I was out doing things. I was in the film business, movie business. I was really full of myself. I was really enjoying working on movies and meeting movie stars and doing all these great things. And I was starting my own company in the film business and had a family. And so I was doing all of that stuff. I wouldn't hear about Rolling Thunder at all until several years later when somebody published a book on him. And don't know what that is. Maybe it's Rolling Thunder coming down. I don't know. So he used to walk around with a feather, and he would tease, sometimes figuratively, sometimes actually, lightning from the air, right? And lightning, in that sense, is our idea of intuition, the moment, things coming right down here. In any case, I didn't see him then, but the words that I read changed my life in a certain way. I read them and they were so peculiar. One sentence in particular, which I want to share with you tonight. It's just one sentence. It's deceptively simple, and I want to parse it a little bit without any PowerPoint or anything like that. We can handle one sentence, right? Just visualize it on the back of your eyelids if you have to. Oh, there's the feather. They teased it with. The sentence that Rolling Thunder used was this: "This is the way Indians do things. This is the way Indians do things. It's meant to be, it happens, and that's it." Okay? This is the way Indians do things, colon, it's meant to be, it happens, and that's it. I'm going to take Rolling Thunder at his word and about unity and all of us being one. It's a common Native American theme. The Lakota word for that is Mitakwison, which means all our relations, or we are all related. So I'm going to borrow that and assume we're all going to use it and say, this is the way we do things. It's meant to be, it happens, and that's it. At first, this sounds like a nice prescription for a student late at night in a library trying to get homework done and saying, this is the way I'm going to do my homework. It's meant to be, it'll happen, and that's it, and just go take a nap. And but that's not the way Rolling Thunder thought of this. This is the way we do things. It's meant to be, it happens, and that's it. Rolling Thunder was not using this as a prescription for laziness, nor was he looking at it as a an excuse for the past or for past behavior or anything like that. It wasn't an explanation for, oh, my grandmother died and I mourned for a long time, and I came to the conclusion that it was meant to be. It's not that way. We use that way now. We've absorbed it into the culture where everything seems to be meant to be, and it begins to remove responsibility. So it's not an explanation or excuse for the past, nor is it a predictor for the future. It's not fatalism. It's not saying, because the meant to be does not mean you have no responsibility for doing anything, that just you can go along and there it is, that's all written in advance. What he means instead is he's talking about the moment, which is what the lightning really is, that lightning moment right now between the past and the future, the intuition. And it's what we all have. The the present moment, the now. This is the spirit. It's what's called spirit. Neuroscience is very interested in this at the moment. There are several new books out on it now. Basically, the idea that you can step into a shower and have a better idea than you had while you were trying to have an idea previously. It's that kind of thing. But this is also, it's the lightning strike, it's the moment, and it's also a kind of immortality that happens right in this moment. And if you can attend to this moment, not by doing something, but by doing nothing, and sort of looking sideways at life. Looking just whatever's in the moment at the time. And all of this is very abstract when we talk about it this way. And that's okay. You can't learn what you don't already know. You can't learn what you don't recognize in that sense. Let me just give you a couple of stories to illustrate this, of how I came to be teaching here at Gettysburg, or here tonight for that matter. In around the year 2000, I wanted to get out of the film business. I was 60 years old, right at the turn of the millennium, and it was time for me to get out and do something else. I was still vital, still had a life in front of me, and I had no idea what to do. It just was completely mind-boggling to me. So I felt a bit like a person just about to graduate from college with all of this stuff behind me, but no jobs available. It was that kind of headache. And what I did then is probably what a lot of people do at graduation. I just took a nap. And I went in my apartment in New York City, I went up into the loft bed and just lay down and napped. During that nap, I had a dream. It happened very quickly, so listen to it. I was walking along a path, and suddenly I exploded. You know, and it was such a strange dream. It's that, you know, dreams like that are just strange. It wasn't like a terrorist exploding or anything like that. I just exploded, and out of me came all these seeds, and they went out, and they had little feathers on them, and they went out and landed someplace. And I woke up right away, and I said to myself, And but I didn't wake up with fear. I woke up with a kind of reassurance or a peaceful feeling. I didn't know what to make of it. I put it on the shelf and just went on with my life. And somewhere in the temporal vicinity of that dream, I went out one day to look at the sunset on Riverside Drive, in Riverside Park in New York City, around 85th Street. And I went up on what I've called brain rock. And it's a metamorphic outcropping with striations in it. And I went there and I sat on what would be the prefrontal cortex of that rock, on the most far western side, looking at the sunset. I sat cross-legged. I was all alone on the rock. I sat cross-legged looking at the sunset coming down, the sun setting between two buildings on the Jersey Shore. The sun came down and down and down, and then rested on the horizon for just a minute. And during that second that it was sitting there, I went into a kind of trance, you know, self-induced, I'm sure, or whatever. And I just, something happened, and a lot of my past played out before me. Ideas, things, just timeless things seemed to happen. And a lot of time seemed to go by when I finally came out of the trance. And it amazed me that the sun was still sitting there in the same place on the horizon. When I became conscious, all of a sudden it began to dip slowly down. And as it did, it went down and down like this, and then flickered out. And all of a sudden, I heard somebody right behind me cough. There had been no one else on the rock when I went up there. And I turned around, and there were 10 to 12 students sitting on the rock, student types looking like that. They were young people, looked like college students, all sitting on the rock, all cross-legged, all looking at the sunset behind me. And I, with notebooks on their laps, actually writing. Those two things, those two completely crazy things, really gave me permission to recognize the future, to recognize what would happen next. And I can just testify that a lot of doing took place after that. I went and got a couple of college degrees from Columbia, University. When asked during that time to teach in an inaugural program, I said, yeah, that sounds familiar. I think I can do that. And so I recognized sort of all these things came together in my head. And then when asked to teach at Gettysburg College, that too came together. And I wound up here. And then when I was asked to do a TED Talk by a student, by Emily, by a couple of other people, I said, that sounds right too. In other words, I recognized, beginning with the dream and beginning with that crazy sort of vision, not doing anything, just looking sideways, those became the most important predictors of what it was I would do from then on. So I invite you to follow that edict. This is the way we do things. It's meant to be. It happens. And that's it. Thank you.